It happens often. You see people get me in a podcast and they're like, oh my God, it's been an hour and a half. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I know.
Just to shift gears again a little, out of your, I'm going to call it activism for lack of a better word.
Yes.
But are there any conversations that have come up that you hadn't expected, that surprised you in a certain way, or also made you change the way how you think?
100%. I think that I've also lived in a lot of denial from a lot of the things that actually happened in my career and my life. And when a lot of things started coming up, even last year, it allowed me to look at a lot of things that I was going through. And the more I've spoken about a lot of these issues, the more and more and more and more and more messages I get that have shook me so hard. To hear so many stories of abuse in the industry. And not only to hear so many different stories from abuse from so many different people of all genders in all parts of the world, but to see how similar they all are, right? They're so similar in the way that they've been abused, or they've been brought into spaces or manipulated to stay in those places, how much of their voice they've lost and their autonomy, and how much they've been gaslit and have been suffering for a long time in silence. I think that's rough. It's really hard to hear all of these things and then to even be like, oh, me too. I think that's been really interesting, really hard to hear, but also confirming. When you see all these patterns emerging from so many people, all of these patterns have emerging in this outside world are also emerging in the real world. Yeah. We hear so many stories of abuse in so many circles. It can't be that we all called each other.
No.
I called Cassie and I called all these people and are like, now let's accuse all the men because we hate them, right? No, it shows the patterns clearly. It shows the issues clearly. It's happening everywhere.
We had the Me Too movement in Hollywood.
Yes.
I feel like we've sort of been having that moment.
We're definitely having our
now,
Me Too movement in
the last year or so. More stories coming out.
Definitely since last year, it's when I kind of our Me Too movement, you would say, happened. Of course, there's been a lot of conversations happening behind closed doors for many years, probably. These things have been happening for a long time. It's not like it's just happening now. It's just the conversations and the spaces are opening now for the conversations to happen. Or a lot of people are just like, I'm done. I'm fed up. I'm speaking out. Because I wouldn't even say there's the spaces where there just a lot of people were really brave and done and fed up and they decided to speak out. We're definitely going through a Me Too movement and I'm happy it's happening.
I think a lot of the survivor stories that we read, often through platforms such as Instagram, how do you see the role of these stories being shared publicly?
These stories, at least for me, they're what allowed me to actually look at my own story. Because when you're gaslit for such a long time and when you've been vilified for such a long time, you're this, you're too much, you're too little, not enough, but too much, but this, but that. At 19, right, you believe it, especially when it comes from people you admire and for people you depend on. And then you believe it. And I've spent my entire literally half of my life, trying to be better at what they were saying that I was not good at. And I never realized that it was just their narrative. It was in my reality. And of course, I've played into it. Of course, like the narratives that they've created about me, of course, they're going to say, oh, Karel is a bitch and she likes to hurt people with her words. And then here I am that are outspoken and strict and whatever. Then if you already heard that narrative, you're going to believe it. Obviously, they've used my own strengths to weaponize and make them the narrative of the villain, because a lot of people, I'm the villain in a way. When I saw a lot of these stories, I was like, wait, what? Wait, let me think about this. Oh, you lived this too? Wait, they are the problem? Of course, I don't want to point fingers. We've all contributed. Like I said, we all have conditioning and we all have narratives and we all have things. But those people coming out their survivor stories have allowed me to start healing a lot of my story. I don't think it only shifts the culture and starts the conversations, but it starts the healing process for a lot of us. And I'm so grateful for the people that have had the courage before me to speak out about all of these things, because they are almost directly responsible for allowing me to see my own story and actually finally start healing my own story. They're very important.
They were on the front lines in a certain way.
100%.
Yeah.
And like I said, a lot of people, look, I got goosebumps. They're going to be responsible for a lot of healing and also for hopefully a shift in our community, which is ultimately what everybody wants. Nobody wants cancel culture or vengeance. Everybody thinks that these survivors and whatever, what they really want is to heal. And what they really want and what we really want, the majority of us, is for this not to continue to happen to somebody else, because it ruins your life.
I don't think I've read every story. I know a lot of these stories, they are being shared between the people as well. They're sometimes even being centralized. One thing that has come up that I've heard is that some people, I don't know, do you say this in English? You don't see the forest anymore through the trees? That's something we say in the Netherlands. There's a lot of stories, some that shock you to the core, and in every story there is some suffering, but there's also very different kinds of stories that are being shared. I sometimes see stories that say, okay, I was pushed too far in the training, or I think it was dodgy how I had to pay more than other people, all the way to really horrifying cases, rape cases or of those kinds. Is there any risk in putting all those stories sort of together and you're sort of putting them all in one group?
Yes, they're all in one group. Harm is harm. I think that we can't compare harm. And this is a narrative that a lot of people fall prey to. Oh, it's like being pushed too hard equates to rape. Of course, there's levels of damage, but you don't understand how that maybe that person at that moment received the harm. We can't compare harm, right? Because the issue here is not whether they raped you or they just abused you physically or they whatever. The problem is these people are continuing the harm, and it's usually the same people. I think that we continue to look at survivors, we continue to look at their stories, we continue to try to poke holes in their stories, we continue to question survivors, but we're not looking at the aggressors. We, like, I don't know, this is why we centralize survivors, but like the issue is that we continue to look at, like, is this right? Is this not right? Is this, is this and that? Was it true? Was it not true? And we're not looking at, oh wait, who are they accusing? And like, why are these people continue to do this? And are they going to say anything about it? Because for me, when I put the questions, the anonymous questions, and somebody said, hey, you harmed me too, I publicized that. I made it public and I said, I know I've also caused harm. Yeah. That's called accountability. We're all going to make mistakes.
Of course.
We're all going to make mistakes. We're all learning. We're all conditioned in certain ways. The point is not being perfect. We're not expecting perfection from our leaders. We're not expecting them not to make mistakes. We're expecting them to look at themselves when they're making their mistakes, listen when somebody tells you you're harming me, and then finding ways to be better leaders and better teachers and better mentors. We don't expect perfection. We expect you to listen. And that's exactly what people are not doing. They're not listening. When they hear stories, they're gossiping about them. It's like the news of the day. Who's going to come out with their story now? They're not realizing, because a lot of these stories, we've heard them behind rooms. We've heard these stories at congresses, in your room, gossip. And have we done anything about it? We've just heard them be like, oh my God, do you know that this guy did this to this? Oh my God, that's so crazy. Have we been and get up and be like, hey, you did this? Or like, hey, let's do something about it? No, we continue to see this as gossip, try to poke holes in the stories, and then just be like, oh yeah, I guess that guy is bad, but well, I like how he dances, so I'm still going to go to his class. Yeah.
And in these stories, I fully understand what you say, especially in the context that you say that there's a systemic issue we have. And that is also a common factor to explain different kinds of harm. But is there some sort of line if you platform on the one side a sexual assault, but on the other somebody that said that their director maybe called them a name that they didn't like? Given that people, even online, have limited attention and also space to take in these stories, are we belittling the gravity of one person's story if there's not a line that's drawn of what we show to people?
I think that, I don't know, if I have a student and she didn't like that I said, hey, you have to go to the back. And then she publicized a story that is like, oh, Karel belittled me and put me to the back. I think that, of course, they could just come to me and give me the opportunity to talk to me and be like, why did you put me in the back? And we can have a conversation. Of course, there are things that can be talked about between people and can be solved between people. But a lot of the times when they're already publicizing these stories is because they've already talked to these people, because they've already brought things to the attention. And then these people continue to do it to other people, or they don't accept blame or like whatever. Listen, publicizing a story about something that happened to you is really hard. It's really hard. Until you've been in a position where, should I make what happened to me public? It's really hard because you already know that some people are going to question you. They're going to question your story. And the thing is that most people that have been through these things have been questioned already, and they've been gaslit so much. And then you have to face these things, and then you have to make sure that you make it public, and then you have to face public backlash and people questioning you and whatever. I think that by the time somebody actually makes the decision of publicizing something is because they've had enough. Most people won't put themselves in that position, especially with the culture that we live in now, that we know we're going to question survivors. We don't have systems in place that are like trauma informed and not trauma inducing, right? We don't have these systems in place yet. And I have no answer on how that system would look like. But we are more trauma inducing in the way we question people and the way we do things, instead of, we believe what's happening, we hear you, now let's figure out how to go from here. Because of that, we already know that when you put something, you're going to face a lot of backlash, especially when you're talking about people that are in power, because there's a lot of people who already love them. For you to put yourself in that position with knowing that is very hard.
Of course.
So this is why I say there's not a lot of people that are going to do that unless they're fed up, or unless they've been through something, or what this person did to them affect them deeply. We need to listen.
I myself have been speaking up about this as well, in the sense that for a lot of people, and often this happens to be men, their first reaction to survivor stories is questioning the decisions of the victim, or victim blaming, in other words. And for some reason they say, I understand that the aggressor might have done something wrong, but it's almost instinctively the first questions they're going to have is, oh, why did you decide to talk to him? Or why did you decide to hang out, this and that?
Because we live in a world where we protect power before we protect people.
So I understand the points you were making before, but let's say, like, in 95% of cases, indeed, people that put their story out there, they have put a lot of thought into it, and they are sort of accepting these risks, knowing that hopefully it will help them heal, hopefully it will help other people. And what about the 5% where the lady that you put in the back, instead of talking to, she does put it online, and you are publicized between a series of other events that maybe are different orders of magnitude of gravity, but your story with your name is in there as like an aggressor, even though it might have been indeed something there, you made a mistake, maybe not, maybe to have your name there, to be shamed.
But I'm still an aggressor. Their pain is still valid. Of course, we can look at types of harm. Of course, of course, you can't put me in the same kind of, like, if I did that and somebody who sexually assaulted somebody, but I still caused you harm. And because the thing is, this is the thing. I'm a teacher and I'm a leader in the community because the community put me there. Not because I'm amazing. Of course, I've worked hard. Yes, of course, I'm talented, whatever you want to say, but the community put me there. My responsibility is to my community, not to myself, not to my power, not to my position, not to my fame. It's to my community. If my community is coming to me and say, you caused me harm, or there was a negative impact of what you did to me, I still have to listen. And I still have to be like, I'm sorry. This is what happened. Yes, of course, it's not sexual assault, but it's still harm by a leader in the community. And if I'm a leader in the community, I have the responsibility to my community to make better decisions, not to be perfect, but to listen. That's again the message. I can be in that list too, because I've caused harm too. Does that mean that I need to be canceled? No, but I do need to be held accountable. Every leader needs to be held accountable. Every single one. From the sexual abusers to the ones that put you in the back and talked to you badly and they made you feel bad. Because we're not perfect, and because we're leaders and we hold the leadership, and we say, oh, you have people who look up to you, who love you, who would travel for you, who would spend their money, their time, their trust on you. That is very important. That is an honor. That is a privilege to have that. You need to hold that with the utmost respect. And how do you do that? By listening to the people who are putting you there.
With power comes responsibility.
Of course, but it's not only that. With power comes love. With power comes community. If not, it's patriarchy.
It's not a secret that humans are not very good at gaining power all of a sudden, because
100%.
they can teach you how to dance, they can teach you how to lead people, how to have influence. But who's going to teach you how to be a responsible human being and how to be empathetic?
But listen, today we can't say we can't learn that. When I was growing up, I had to go to a fucking library and get an encyclopedia to look for something. Now you have it here. You have fucking ChatGPT, right?
Become more empathetic.
Seriously, the information is there. You just have to want to do that. And then the thing is that, again, it's about giving again. Giving, not just taking. Giving. We continue to be in a society where we just take. How much more can I take from you? How much more can I extract from the earth? How much more can I take from everybody? Instead of, how about we share? How about we share? And that's exactly what this is showing us, right? I don't care if they put me in that list, because I will come and I will hold myself accountable before even you put me there. I've been holding myself accountable for a long time, right? And I will publicly hold myself accountable, and I will say, I'm sorry if I have to. Why? Not because I want to be accountable, because I actually care that I harmed somebody. I genuinely don't want to do that. My intention has never been that. If I actually hurt you with what I said, fuck, I don't want that. I really don't want that. And I really don't want to continue to do that to anybody. Let me learn how to not keep doing that. Because at the end, then I sleep better at night too.
I think being better humans is something that everybody could have as an objective. I'm sure we've all been an aggressor.
Of course.
In a certain way, in something.
Of course, because we've been conditioned that way, again. Right? We've been conditioned that way. I've been so fat phobic, right? I'm still fat phobic to myself, right? I grew up in the 90s. If you weren't skinny, you were worth nothing. Right? There's so many isms and so many things. I've been racist, I've been fat phobic, I've been sexist, I've been all of the isms that you want, because I grew up in this world. So I've had to learn, and a lot of the mistakes that I didn't want to, I didn't know better, but I still make them, and I still harm somebody. I still have to take responsibility for that. That's all we're asking for. Take responsibility, analyze your things, listen to the people that you harmed, try to do better.
We've talked about survivor stories, about their impacts, about what we can learn from it, how it can help us to heal. We've talked about how to deal or think about stories that we can maybe consider of different levels of harm or intensity or impact on people's lives. One very common criticism you see online on stories that are shared there, sometimes anonymous, is some people say, what if it's not true? What if we are just making stuff up?
What if?
If somebody were to accuse me of something very grave and it would just simply not be true, it could destroy my life.
For
and
sure.
Maybe I am a good person, and maybe I don't deserve it. Maybe they just hold a grudge against me for another reason.
For sure. And that's why, like, there are systems in place. When we say you centralize survivors or you believe survivors, it doesn't mean that you won't take the necessary steps to do your due diligence to make sure that this actually happened, right? There's not an ideal system to do it yet. I think, again, it's very trauma-inducing and not trauma-informed. But what we're trying to do when we say we centralize survivors is, initially, if you share a story, I'm going to listen to your story. I'm going to believe your story. I'm going to listen to what you're saying. I'm going to be there for you while we're still going to try to figure out what's happening. It's about figuring out a way to support people first, rather than support abusers. And yes, it's very tricky, but again, it's already super hard, because even if this person comes out and they're lying, let's say, right? They're still going to get a lot of backlash. Their career reputation and everything is still going to get smeared. This is what people don't see. Whether you're lying or you're telling the truth, you're still going to get smeared by people. This is why I'm telling you, it's very, very rare that people will come out with fake stories. But if we set up systems to defend these people, or not to defend, but to listen, right? First, instead of trying to poke holes in their stories, we create a system where we are able to hold people better accountable, where we centralize survivors, where people feel like, I don't need to lie or to make things bigger, to make things whatever for people to listen to me. And then we create a culture that people can talk to you, there's more accountability. It's a really hard question, because that's the pushback of the insults, that's the pushback of the people that hold the power. What if they're lying? What if they're lying? I personally rather share a story of somebody who's lying and believe them and then retract myself than not do that and they are actually not lying. Of course, there is a lot of this, but for example, what's happening now, and if we see it, there's a pattern. There's a pattern with the same people. There's a pattern with the same type of stories. You can also see, if you see enough of these stories, I'm not going to say necessarily there's one template or one way, but it's almost there when somebody's doing things out of vengeance than when somebody's doing things out of pain or out of healing. I had somebody who was like, I want to share this story. I want to share my story about this person and blah, blah, blah. And I said, are you doing this for you, or are you doing this to punish them? Yeah. It was not something like sexual assault or anything like that. And she was just kind of mad. And she was like, he treated me badly and blah, blah, blah. And of course she deserves all the voice and whatever. But then she called me back and she said, actually, I was just doing it because I was really pissed and I wanted to do this. Because I told her, because I was like, because you're going to face a lot of backlash. It's really hard. It's really hard. I came out with part of my story. A little bit, I talked about what's happened to me. And it's been really bad. It's been really bad. It's been really, really bad. Not only like the jobs that maybe I've lost, I'll never know, but even the way people treat you, or even the silence of a lot of people that you thought wouldn't stay silent, right? Seeing people at an event this weekend, platforming abusers, it's very hard. I think that narrative of maybe they're lying, it's still very harmful, and it's still it's still what allows aggressors to thrive, because survivors stay quiet a lot because of this almost like knee-jerk instinct to question these things, to say, oh no, they must be lying, because the truth is, most of the time men are aggressors of women. We know this. It's statistics, right? And again, if you haven't done the work to not be this way, you are going to be this way one way or another. People in general, women, men, everybody in general, because we've been conditioned this way, right? I think we should stop being so worried about whether people are lying and be more worried about maybe they're not lying. We're so worried about them maybe being like they're lying, that we really take so much focus away from the people that are causing harm. It's a really hard question. I've been really trying to figure it out, and I haven't figured it out myself, but that's the best thing that I can come up with. Very rarely people are lying. Let's try to figure out ways, again, that are not continuing to be trauma-inducing, that are trauma-informed, that we're helping these people, that survivors feel safer, that we're having conversations, that people are doing their internal work. It's a tough one. Yeah. It's definitely a tough one, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm apt or there yet to really have the right answers. I'm sure somebody does.
If it's time for you, I'm going to play devil's advocate one more time.
Yes.
In fact, part of what we're doing is we're building a system of justice that's more victim-based.
Yes. What do you mean victim-based?
As in, we're prioritizing the story and the well-being of victims.
Yes.
In a system where historically we perceive often abusers being the one being protected inherently by a system, right? We're building a system of justice on top of an already existing system, because every country where we live, there is police, there is a system of justice.
Yes.
And I can only assume that part of what we're doing here is building almost on top of that, because if that system by itself was sufficient, then there would not be a need.
Right, because it's, again, right, you have police, but like police kill so many black men in the US, right? None of these systems are infallible. None of these systems are perfect. A lot of these systems, again, are based to protect the patriarchy, to protect the white man, to protect the men in power, right? Of course, we need to figure out better ways that protect everybody, because again, this is not about people, this is about power. Again, we're not protecting people. By questioning victims and ignoring accusers, we're not protecting people, we're just protecting the power that these people hold. By a lot of people staying silent, by a lot of people continuing to support these people, is because of the power that they represent. Not because of what they've actually sometimes even giving to the community. Because if you're giving just to take, are you really giving? I don't know. It's really tough, and I think, like I said, these conversations are hard because the issues are systemic. The issues are not in the salsa world, right? And even if they were just in the salsa world, they're hard to change. They're hard conversations to be had. Everybody is defensive. Everybody's trying to defend what they've built. Nobody likes to hear. Do you think it's been easy for me, somebody that I know I've had good intentions, and on top of that, I've been a victim and I am a survivor of a lot of these behaviors, and I've been living in fight or flight for the last 20 years of my life, gaslighting myself, thinking that there's something wrong with me, and on top of that, to hear that I've harmed somebody? Do you think I want to hear that? Of course not. That feels like shit. It feels like shit to know that I've been through all of this. I've had good intentions. I'm a good, kind person, but I've also harmed people. Nobody wants to look at themselves and accept that. It's really hard. It takes a lot to do that, right? Because everybody that's hurting somebody, it's probably hurt themselves. They're hurt themselves. We know this, right? Hurt people hurt people. It's true. Yeah. It starts with each and one of us being able to look in the mirror and say, I have these things, but I've also done bad things. What do I want to do from here? It starts with every single one of us. And like I said, I don't know if I'll live to see the change. But at the same time, I'm already seeing the change. I don't know if I live to see the whole systemic change. I don't know if I live to see the end of capitalism and patriarchy. But I know that things are changing, that things are changing within me already, and that's something, and things are changing within you, and things are changing within individual people. The conversations are being had, people are listening, they're going to therapy, they're getting help, they're evaluating. That's already changed. We might not see the full change, but there is some change. I understand that what we're asking from these people that hold the power is really hard. Mm-hmm. But one day they'll look back, and believe me, let me tell you one thing. Accountability is about healing. The big gift that a lot of people have given me by telling me that I've harmed them, it's been a gift. Yeah. Because they've given me the opportunity to actually be a better person. To grow, to be a better. People have been generous. It's even the ones that are attacking me. They've been generous enough to allow me to actually look at the things that I've done and have the opportunity to grow and to be better. Mm-hmm. Accountability is liberation. Accountability is growth. To be able to look at yourself and want to be better is liberation, is growth, is resistance.
It requires willingness to do self-reflection.
Of course. And that's the thing. Not everybody wants it, because imagine self-reflecting that you've been a sexual abuser for the last 20 years. That's tough.
Is there like a defining moment for you where you felt like, this is the moment that I really started to think different?
It kind of happened gradually. My activism, you would say, or like that my dance took this direction. It didn't happen right away. It happened like when I was in the company that I was in before. Mm-hmm. I was already a competitive person, right? Yeah. A lot of women are competitive because this is scarcity mentality. We live in a world that there's enough space for women, mm-hmm. so you have to fight each other to even get into the spaces. We're already conditioned that way. I grew up in a very competitive family, and I was in sports, which I was already kind of competitive. And then I go to this company, which quickly becomes everything that I have in the world. I am 19. I moved to New York by myself. I had no family, no friends, no nothing. And then the director loves to pin us against each other. Like, that's a strategy he uses. He's not shamed by it. He says it openly. He's like, oh no, if I keep them competing, they're both thriving, mm-hmm. right? Which is so toxic. And I became very competitive, and it was really hard for me. It was very isolating. So when I left this company and I started like putting together boot camps, and I started having like, mainly female teams, I was like, I don't want that anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't want this competition. Like it was really hard for me. I didn't like it. I was vilified by it. I don't want it. I want to learn differently. So then I started being more in community with my teammates and my team members. And of course, it took years. I was terrible leader. I did terrible, stupid things too. And within that leadership, of course, I wasn't perfect in any way. I wish I could do so many things over, but that's what I learned too. Mm-hmm. And then it started like that. Like, I don't know, people would say like, oh, Karel's a bitch. And then I was like, oh, if I'm going to be a bitch because I'm outspoken and because I'm a woman leader, and because then I'm going to have an army of bad bitches. I'm going to have a whole lot of women who are outspoken and who are leaders and who are in community. And that is kind of how it started. Yes. Right. And then eventually, the more you surround yourself with these type of individuals, and if you're open to it, the more you're going to learn from them. Yeah. I think that I've gotten to this point because I've had amazing people around me. Yeah. I've had amazing people around them, and I've had the willingness to listen. And I have had incredibly generous people that have come to me and told me when I said something that wasn't right, or when I said something that was racist or something that was hurtful or fatphobic, who held me accountable. I've had amazing people held me accountable, and I've been open to it. So eventually it's been developing throughout like my career since I would say 2014 is when I started solo.
That was evolving.
It definitely was. It started out of necessity, out of I don't want this anymore. I don't want to be that. And then I was like, oh, it was sexism. Oh, it was a bit. Oh, you start like kind of like all the bulbs start happening, and then you start figuring it out. Right? I'm still figuring out how to be a more ethical person in this community. And I don't have the answer. Sometimes the answer means you talk to each other, and you in community you figure out what's best for everybody.
Yeah. Now, of course, you are quite opposite in your approach and way of thinking of what some people call like the old school way of doing things. Do you feel like other, let's say, especially female leaders now in the scene, do you feel like they should have that same responsibility to speak up against patriarchal systems? Do you feel like you have to hold them accountable, or do you feel like it's also can also be their choice to stay in a place of comfort?
I think that everybody is going to, I don't think that we need to pressure anybody to do anything that they're not ready to do or comfortable with doing. Definitely. I think that we can't force people to jump on the bandwagon. Everybody will get to things when they can, right? Because a lot of the women that are not speaking about things is that because it's comfort, or because it feels like safety, or because it feels like too much of a risk to say something. But again, I think that everybody has a responsibility as a leader to reflect and listen. And I think that that's a lot of what they're not doing, right? So I wouldn't say like, you have to speak up, or you have to support me, or you have to do this. But I would say like, you are a leader, you have to reflect, and you have to listen, and you have to stop, and you have to analyze your behavior and the way you're doing things as a leader, because again, you're a leader. Right? You have people that follow you, who love you, like I said before. So that has a weight, right? Because it's very interesting, because people want that position, but they don't want the responsibilities that come with that position, right? I want to be loved and adored and hired, but I don't want to do anything about anything else that I need to do as a leader. Right? And we see this in politicians. We see this in everywhere, right? It's not whether you have to speak up or not. I can't tell you to do that. Like I said, a lot of these women are harmed themselves, and it takes a long time to even face it. You have to grieve so much when you actually come to the realization of a lot of things that have happened to you in your life. I can't pressure them to do that, but I would urge everybody to reflect in the way they're doing things, to reflect in the way that things have been done to them, to reflect on the people they have around, the people they're platforming, the people that continue to support. And if these people, I've heard people like, oh, I know he's kind of like an asshole, but I love him. He's given me so much. One thing doesn't take away from the other. You can be grateful to somebody, and you can be grateful for everything that they've given you, and still accept that they've harmed you and harmed others. Because if not, you become a flying monkey. You're becoming somebody who continues to protect abusers and to continues to allow them to hurt others. Ugh, that's tough. Like, if it's not only tough to be abused, it's not only tough to be somebody who's harmed others, but to be somebody who actually protects people and allows this harm to continue. Yikes. One day, this will all be history. One day we will all look back, and we will find out which side of history you were in. And one day everybody is going to wish they were in the better side of history sooner. Just like with Palestine, just like with the Holocaust, just with so many things. So they have to reflect on that. What side of history they're in, who they're protecting, right? And sometimes that's themselves. They're protecting themselves. I understand this, right? But in protecting themselves, they're protecting abusers.
Do you sometimes feel alone in your fight and abandoned maybe by people that should be helping you?
Yes and no, because there's a huge community that is protecting me, and there's a huge community that has not abandoned me, and that believe me, and that support me. It's kind of like that negativity bias, right? At first I was like, oh my God, nobody's saying anything. And then I was like, wait. Look at all the messages that you've gotten, and all the people who are sharing it, and all the people who are doing it. I don't see it from my colleagues. That's for sure. Like, I feel very isolated from my colleagues. I've been isolated from my colleagues for a long time. Most of my colleagues didn't like my post, didn't share my post, didn't say anything. So from my colleagues, definitely. From the community, no. From the community, I feel very supported. Of course, there's people in the community that don't support me, but I feel very supported, very loved, very very supported and loved by my community. So yes and no. What my abuser did very smartly is that he implanted doubt in everybody, right? He's continued to feed this narrative, like Karel is a bitch, and Karel, so I'm competitive, right? Or I was very competitive. So he goes, oh, Karel's so competitive that if she sees a woman that's good, she's gonna try to tear them down. And don't believe what you see. If you had a good interaction with her, there's probably something in there. It's not real, right? Talk about projection, by the way, right? He's implanted this seed in a lot of people. And then with my personality that is outspoken and I'm a woman, it doesn't help, right? And also I'm a person that has a lot of boundaries. I have a lot of boundaries. I'm not your typical like, whoa, I'm gonna party with everybody. I'm not super, super, super sociable either. And I've been in pain for a long time. All of that feeds the narrative. So a lot of my colleagues, they've believed the narrative and it's been enforced by maybe interactions that they've had with me, right? At this point, because I've seen them supporting other stories, not mine. So at this point, supporting my story not only would go against somebody who seems to be very powerful, so they don't want to do that because they don't want to be, I've heard even some of these people like, no, I'd rather not be at war with this guy because if he's spoken like about you like that, imagine what he's going to say about me, right? But also it would mean for them to stop and be like, wait, so I've been vilifying this person for so long and I never actually stopped to think maybe she was going through something really hard, or maybe it was this person spreading the narrative, or maybe I misjudged her. So they would have to look at that and face that maybe they contributed a little bit to my harm, and that's hard. So I don't blame them. I mean, there's so many things. They're too deep in the system. Some of them don't see it. Some of them don't like me and don't want to support me. Some of them don't want to go against that. Some of them don't want to be equated with me. Because they hear it. Oh, Karel, oh my God, like look at what she's doing now. And oh my gosh, she's such a difficult person. She's a difficult woman. They don't want to be outspoken because they don't want to be talked about the way people talk about me. So I don't blame them. I almost understand them, but it still hurts. It definitely hurts. But I get it. I don't think it's right. And it's not about supporting me. It's about what that shows also to other survivors, what continues to silence survivors. Because if people see that they're not supporting other survivors, they're going to be like, oh, they're not going to support me either. So they, with their actions, not only they're like, not only they're not supporting me, but they're setting an example to other survivors who might be doubting their story or who might be doubting if they want to come out with their story. That's rough.
Thanks again for sharing all of that. Maybe let's end on
On a
something
higher
nice.
note.
Is there something with your travels for dance or in the world of salsa that you're really looking forward to in the next years?
I mean, look, I went to the beach last night to ground myself a little bit. And then I'm out there and I'm looking, I'm like, fuck, I'm in Greece. Like, I was sitting there and I was like, it's so interesting because I'm so grateful and also like it's hard. It's been so hard. And I've had to override so much and to give up a lot of my values and a lot of things to even be here with it, sometimes without even realizing it. But I'm in Greece. Yeah. And I'm doing what I love, which is to dance. Right, and I do get to have a lot of community, and I've gotten to be able to connect with so many amazing people that have taught me so much and that have given me so much. So this is exactly why there's a fight, because I think this is worth fighting for. I think our community is worth fighting for. I think our dances are worth fighting for. At the end of the day, there's so much bad things, and there's so much of abuse of power and sexual assault and all of the things that we have, right? But there's still so much beauty. There's still so much beauty in our community. There's still so much beauty in our dances. And like I said, this is why I'm here. This is why I'm fighting for it. I'm not fighting against somebody. I'm fighting for my community. We're all fighting for our community. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to have more conversations. I'm looking forward to more dancing. I'm looking forward to more community. I'm looking forward for more people to want to fight for this and to have a better community and for people to feel safe and included regardless of what they look like, regardless of their gender, regardless of the gender expression, regardless of their skin color. Everybody can feel included because this oppresses us all and also can liberate us all. Yeah. That's what I'm looking forward to, a better world.
I'm very grateful. Like you are very outspoken. You are well established in how you think about things. You tackle real issues. You're not afraid to be out there. You're a fighter.
But I'm still learning.
We're all
I'm
learning.
definitely
This will never
not
stop.
perfect, and I definitely want people to know that I don't have all the answers. I really don't. I try to be a safe space for people, but I'm more like part of it. We're all in conversation. I'm gonna probably continue to make mistakes, but I know that, and I want to continue to get better. And anything that I say and anything that I do, I'm open to correction, to conversation, to accountability, because I definitely don't have all the answers, and I'm still learning. I'm still unlearning, and I'm still learning.
So I'm very grateful for your time today.
Thank you for having me and for giving me a platform.
Yes, and we have the whole weekend ahead of us.
Yes.
I hope it's going to be a very nice weekend. The sun is shining outside.
We can dance and have a conversation.
Yeah, we love that. Looking forward to it. So thank you very much for being on this episode of Behind the Shines.
Yes, I love the name.
Yeah, I hope you can watch this on YouTube or Spotify.
There we go.
And share your opinions down in the comments.
Definitely share.
Also, if you have any other questions for Karel, maybe in the future we'll have another session and we can also get to those.
Another 2-hour session.
Yeah, no, it was very enjoyable.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and thank you everybody for listening. Yeah. And I love you, and I hope for nothing better than our community to be more loving and safer and just more beautiful. Bye.
All right, bye.